Hey everybody. I'm gonna just give you a kind of a rough idea of how you can go about doing assignment three. I'm just kind of gonna do some steps of it. I'm not gonna bring the whole thing to the level of completion that you guys are going to want to, but even just like reminding you of all these different tools that you have to start to do this project, I think might be helpful going forward. So one of the examples from the list I've picked is the Monadnock house. Super cool. The Atlas house that they've got. And you have a whole list of buildings that you'll be able to pick from these images. Um, I really liked this one. And so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and recreate this. So what I am going to start by doing is just dragging my image in as a picture to Rhino. And I'm just going to drop this in here. And my first thing I want to do is just get like a very rough model to work with, right? Um, because I feel like this should have some render effect on it. So what I'm going to do is just model the basics of this very quickly. And like I said, I'm not going to do the entire thing for the sake of time. I think your guys' time would be better spent obviously doing your own assignment, but I do want to just touch on how you can kind of work between these three tools. So as we're kind of looking at this, I'm seeing brick texture, I'm seeing window texture. Okay, let's get these openings. And this one is interesting. I'm actually gonna grab the opening like this. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take all my line work into the 3D view, and I'm gonna extrude curve. Now, I'm not going to be super particular about the distance of any of these, but so I'm gonna Boolean separate out this guy right here. All right, all right. Then what I can do is take this, grab a quick render. I do not have uh, my V-Ray license currently live, so that's probably why that didn't quite populate. But if I go ahead and look at this, switch my renderer. I do want to say, don't render your stuff top down really ever. That is kind of a bad idea. And that is because it often doesn't work right because the sun is your light source coming from above. So I would always actually render from a side view or from your perspective view. So in this case, we just want to grab a quick render of the front. I'm using the legacy Rhino render because that is all I have access to at the moment. But I want my render to maybe be a little bigger. So I'm going to go into my Rhino render properties. We're going to make this good quality. We're going to pump this up. transparent background will be helpful. And then I'm going to render this. Should take just a second. I really love the transparent background. Makes this as a PNG for when we bring it into Photoshop as well as Illustrator. That will be helpful. So we're just going to let this cook for a second. Down here in your lower left, if you ever have to use the Rhino renderer, this is kind of a gauge of how long you're going to spend on it. And this is done, so we're going to save this. All this. There. Then what I can do is this is my Illustrator file, right? I can drop my render into here. And we're going to be like, oh no, what the heck? I thought I saved this as a PNG. So when I go to save, I can see I accidentally saved it as a JPEG. So we want this to be a PNG. That will actually make the background transparent. My file explorer is in another window, but I'll drag it over here so you can see. Now we have a transparent background, right? I'm also going to drop in our original image just so you guys can see as we go. Right, so kind of got some details going here. Let's see, I'm seeing right off the bat in the background how I want to have a like gradient, a yellow gradient, right? So I can go ahead and make a new layer. And I do want to put this guy on a background layer. Get these on separate layers real quick. There we go. And that is so I can grab this guy, make him the right size. Also, if you ever don't like the way a PNG comes in, go ahead and right click on it and you can crop the image. Our PNG is really only going to be about EA big. It's kind of, to me, this gives it, I have a little more control over it when I get to have the corners a little better. So just as a rule, I've got this guy in the background and I'm thinking I want a yellowish gradient, right? So let's get another layer. Let's basically right here is a gradient tool. So what you can do is click into that shape and you have this series of dots, right? Where you're picking your gradient. So I can highlight one of these dots. Or you could do it this way. Double click on the dot and then you can hit the eyedropper tool. And all of a sudden I have a yellow in here, right? And I want to rotate this. Select, hold shift, edit my gradient some more. So what are we thinking about that, guys? Look at this. Got a nice gradient started, and then it's like from here, I can start to maybe do some doodling where I can do Boolean shapes in Illustrator for the frames, right? Or I could find an image of a frame and bring it in to Photoshop and start to play with it that way. There's kind of a million ways we could do this. Um, I do feel like the gradients are easiest in Illustrator. That's just my own personal workflow, but obviously there's a wide variety of ways we could approach this. But when I look at this, I start to see obviously we have our brick texture, but there's almost kind of like a fabric texture over top of this as well. And obviously we have the entourage and the trees and everything. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this artboard, export this artboard, use artboards, and I am going to make this a PNG or a JPEG. Drop this in here. Photoshop. I've been a little sick this week, so I'm just kind of hanging in there. But boot up some Photoshop, right? Drop this same image in, and then what we can do is start to like mess with entourage and mess with um, kind of getting this like texture we have over it, right? Um, so as this is opening, I see they've added generative AI to Photoshop. That sounds like a disaster. We're going to create an 18 by 18 artboard. I think that will look nicest for this particular image, which happens to be a square. And then what I'm going to do is bring this in. Perfect. Now I'm just kind of quickly doing this. Obviously, you guys will be adding more detail as you go, but again, as we just kind of have this off to the side, I use my second monitor while looking at this to just get kind of a glimpse of what we're thinking. And I'm thinking first, what I could do is start to like handle some of this, like the pathway at the bottom, right? So that's something where it looks like what, again, Illustrator or Photoshop, there's kind of a million different ways to do this, but you can do the line tool to start drawing some of this out. Let's see here. Pull this over to my other screen. Actually move my gradient. The way that line turned out, so I'm going to delete it. I think actually some of the line work could be done much better in Illustrator, depending on what your workflow looks like, but I'm just doing a quick version of this, and this will kind of stretch off into the distance. It looks like we have just a little bit of orthogonal path happening here, right? Okay. So we've got some base lines to work with. This one line looks darker than the rest of them. Why is that? 1 pixel, 1 pixel. They're all exactly the same. But that one just reads a little darker to me, which is a little funny. That's probably just a trick of the program because it's a straight line. But then what I can start to do is bring in some textures. So I just Googled brick texture, right? And I'm trying to, here, I'll bring this over. Trying to find something that has a light brick tone like this. Let's see. Maybe if I type in light brick, it might help. It almost is pink, but I'm afraid to Google like pink brick because I think it'll bring up like literally like painted pink brick. Yeah. But actually, you know what? Some of these aren't that bad. And obviously there's like the more time you kind of spend on it, the better the final product will look. But I see this as a wonderful little uh it's pretty similar to the vibe. Color, oh, here we go. Yeah, I think that that one in the corner, which might have been what I just had pulled up. This might be good enough for now, so I'm just gonna save that. Brick. Just drag that in. Looks like this image is gonna need some love real quick. Let's go ahead and take this. We're gonna rasterize our image. Obviously, do is where's our layer? Brick layer. Oh, here we go. I see what happened. This got undocked. I might have accidentally done that. Rasterize layer. And then what we are going to do is quick select this white. That is not the best way to do that, truthfully. Let's see, deselect that. Um, Magic wand tool will do a better job. Look at that. That's pretty good. And then I can just, in my edit selection, if I want to remove it, taking out some of this brick, I just hold Alt while I kind of click in here and surround this. There we go. And then I want to make sure it grabs the rest of that. There we go. And then I'm on the right layer. Got what I want selected, and I can delete. That goes away. Control D to deselect. Now it's like, let's throw this brick on here. And again, I'm just going to keep referencing back to this photo. We want the bricks to be smaller. Ideally, I could have potentially grabbed an image that had more bricks on it initially, but sometimes you just gotta make do, right? Do your pasting and the layers. And then this is not a seamless texture, but it will serve us well. I can throw in a line about at the height that I'm seeing this hit, and it looks like it goes right up to underneath our window. Just gonna more of this. And obviously I'm making like a crazy amount of brick layers. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna combine these all in a one layer. All right, so our brick's gonna look like that. We're gonna take all our brick layers. And we are going to merge, merge, drop this behind our, oh, you know what? We're gonna hide that for a second. We are going to magic wand our building right here. Not on our brick layer, like this. And then we're going to invert our selection. Then we're going to turn on our brick and select our bricks and hit delete. There we have our bricks. See how I did that? And then what we can start to do is throw on some contrast. Obviously, there's brick up here, there's frames and stuff, but I'm just kind of doing a quicker version of this with some of the major things happening, right? Then what we can do is bring in some trees. So let's pull open our Google tab. The PNG. I really recommend using PNGs, especially with vegetation. It can get a little zany when you're trying to crop out the white spaces for hundreds of leaves. So we just want some green tree overhang, right? I'm kind of like in one of these. That's like just a silhouette though. See, these are just silhouettes. I want a dark green. I think obviously it's hard to get an exact match for a tree like this, but you just want to kind of find something that is as close as possible. This is that stupid WebP file. So you remember that trick I showed you. You can inspect this and then you can save the actual source. So go to the actual PNG and then you'll be able to save this. You should be able to save that. Huh, that's annoying. Well, we'll just pick a different tree then. I'll go to this website. Some of these are a little annoying. I'd rather just grab one from Google. I suspect that some of these will be a little annoying, but this one, it's not the kind of, it's tough because this isn't the kind of tree I want. It's not the kind of tree I want. Um, this one could work a little better, although it doesn't have that same kind of flow of the leaves that I like. This one could do. This one could do for sure. Just for the sake of showing you how to do it, this will do. So we'll save that tree PNG. Go ahead and just kind of, I'm a big fan of the drag and drop, you know me. So that's lovely that it came in like this. Super pixely. There we go. We'll just, yeah, select all that. Rasterize the layer. Delete all the white space. See, this is why you want like a true PNG, dude. That is so ridiculous. But for now, we're gonna ignore that because really, in reality, all we need. Oh, hello? What the heck's going on there? All right. All we really want are the leaves up in the corner. So and I could even just rotate this to get kind of the leaves in the arrangement that I want. It's not like anyone's gonna know. That's kind of like the beauty of this, right? So take this, just grab the white space, get rid of some of it. I do not recommend doing it this way. This is just me for the sake of being as quick as possible. So that's not gonna work. Um, but you can get, I'm just gonna grab the major spaces for now. Get rid of some of that white space we do not want. We're starting to get a little something that's similar. Um, Obviously not ideal yet. We want to get some hedges. I take this, take this, paste it in. We can rotate it again, get some of that other foliage on the other side, right? Let's just say I'm liking the way that these are branching out. Copy and paste just this part, right? I could just I can mess around with this in all sorts of ways. Start to really layer this. Then I could take these tree layers, merge them together, and then I can, if you remember adjustments, we start to play with the color. These look a little more desaturated in I am viewing this image, but I see I did not control deselect before I did that. So let's try that again. Image adjustments, do brightness and contrast. Yeah, I want these to be a little darker. Okay, and then adjust the hue and saturation. Look at that color. We're nearing what we want. I think that's pretty close. And obviously like ignoring the white space. But so it's like, okay, we've saturated these. These are just kind of like the types of edits that you're going to want to make, right? Um, and what we can do is we'll throw in like just like a hedge. Now I want you to take more time than I am taking. I'm just I don't want you guys to have to watch a several hour long video, but I do want you guys to take the time to go through and find these assets that best match the thing you're working on and then just kind of go for it. So like hedge PNG. I like this one, but is it going to let me use this one? Let's find out. Stupid WP file. There's got to be uh, like, here we go. Boom. Do it this way. See if it actually does work. What even happens if I save a web file? What does that do? Does it let me drag these in here? Ew, it does. I was under the impression that that would not work. So, okay, that's fine. This hedge isn't quite the exact hedge I'll need, but just for the sake of argument. So you can take something in here, and what you can do is warp it, playing with the skew, right? So this hedge over on this side is coming out at us like this. Shrink it down a little. You can skew your objects to kind of get in line the way you want them. This doesn't quite interrupt the door, so I believe it needs to be a little smaller. Kind of have our horizon line runs kind of right through the center of the door, as we see here, right? Um, so we want kind of our hedge to be even. So I'm thinking we could even just give our hedge a little haircut. Rasterize your layers so they become editable. Give this guy a little trim. Deselect, select our object, go back into our editing. We can distort our object several ways. Let's see here. And it looks like it is too close for comfort. So we do something like this. Just like that. And we see in the background there is another one of these. Smaller and in the distance. Smudge of this. Oh, invert my selection and then grab that. Throw this other layer on top. So this is in the background. And mirror that so it doesn't look like it's the exact same hedge necessarily. Something like that, right? Um, this is obviously a little rough. There's kind of like a Photoshop quality to this though that you can see that's actually quite lovely. This doesn't go quite all the way to the ground, so maybe a little growth like that. And maybe we just want to trim this part of this off just because it looks to have solid flat edge right there. And then we'll take this, copy it over here. Got the same thing going on over here, right? Again, we can then take these, do the same saturation tool. I'm gonna, again, everything for me that is on the same thing, I'm gonna put them on the same layer. Image, adjustments, hue and saturation. I think that these almost have like a bluish kind of tone to them. Darker. Let's see. These ones almost do have a lightness to them, actually. Something like that. Yeah, I'd say that's a very similar shade. So we're starting to get there. Obviously, this will need a little more love and touch up, but as I'm looking at this, it's like there's still something like popping out about this. What is that? Obviously, we need to put in some grass as well as other plants and bushes, as well as our background entourage and our shadows. Maybe model our structure and bring that in. But what I want to do real quick is even just show you how to. It's like, let's Google. When I look at this photo, I'm looking at this. I'm thinking bricks, bricks. The whole thing has like a, this is like a painted texture. It's almost like a fabric-y texture, right? So if I type in just like fabric texture, like this, I think this honestly is super, super close to what I want. So if I go ahead and take this, it's an AVIV. Let's see if that works. Um, fabric. Back into Photoshop. Bring this fella in. Did not hit OK. There we go. It's thinking about the AVIV file. Let's see if it's going to let me use it. Whoa. Just gonna hop in here. This is like a raw image. And hit OK. And I might want a higher resolution version of this, but or like a bigger one. In the meantime, what I can do is I can just put this on top, drop the opacity down like 11, and start to read a little bit of a texture over top the whole image, right? And that starts to mimic that paint feel. So, like I said, this is only kind of the start. I just wanted to show you some of the basic tools. There's obviously like a million ways to do this, but you're gonna kind of be moving in and out. What I can then do is like I can drag this back into Illustrator if I want to do more shape work to get some of those frames, or if I want to just model frames in that porch piece here in Rhino, I can individually model those and then like render just those pieces, bring them in to Photoshop, play around with them. The workflow is endless and there is a lot you can do. So start to get into it, start to play around with it, pick one of the images on the list. And I think this will be a really, really fun project and a really interesting test of your skills up until this point. So dive into it, have fun with it. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and I'll be here if you need me. So, that being said, I'll see you guys soon.